who spoke from our side, who was not sitting in his chair, who said what she is, pro-life and everybody, Mr. Speaker. I don't know what he's talking about here.
There will be 2.5 minutes remaining in the time for questions and comments for the honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn when the House next gets back to debate on the question. But now, maintenant, nous allons procédons concernant.
And now, statements by members. The Honourable Member for Moncton. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and 19 of his colleagues spent a lovely break week in India. Costumes, music, dance. The Prime Minister embarrassed us, of course, but we're criticizing him for having undermined the potential economic growth for Quebec. In 1 week, the Prime Minister insulted millions of sovereignists by comparing them to terrorists, just as he did to the government of Punjab. He then found a way of insulting the government of Punjab by calling them liars. He insulted the Indian government by inviting, along with the Canadian delegation, a Sikh terrorist. This Prime Minister sabotaged all our potential for economic growth in the future. And this could have really helped Quebec business. The Honourable Member for Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, yesterday was the 30th anniversary of the 1988 Sumgate tragedy in Azerbaijan. Events that happened over this week included serious acts of violence, riots, widespread pillage, during which Armenian civilians were attacked and killed. The civilian violence in Sumgate was unprecedented, and the atrocities there shocked the entire world. This anniversary makes us reflect on the privileges we enjoy as a country where diversity and inclusion make our strength, and where diverse communities, both religious and ethnic, can work together. It also reminds us that as Canadians we have a duty to condemn all acts of violence and to play an active role in promoting and preserving peace in Canada, but also worldwide. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, members may have noticed that there's a hint of spring in the air this week. In Dufferin-Caledon, that's a sign that our local home shows are right around the corner. In both Caledon and Orangeville, our home shows offer local businesses the opportunity to showcase their products and services to constituents thinking about sprucing things up this spring. In Orangeville, the 2018 Lions Home and Garden Show runs at the Orangeville Fairgrounds on April 6th, 7th, and 8th. Over 200 booths will be showcasing everything to do with home improvement, lawn and garden, and more. In Caledon, the Chamber of Commerce's Spring Home Show 2018 runs at the Albion Bolton Community Centre on April 20th, 21st, and 22nd. The show is a shop local experience where constituents can find out great deals on items related to their home and garden living. I would encourage all residents of Dufferin-Caledon to come and check out the Orangeville and Caledon home shows in April.
The Honourable Member for Montarville. Mr. Speaker, March is Fraud Prevention Month. During the month, initiatives will be taken to make consumers aware of white-collar crime and to remind Canadians that financial crime costs $5 million a year. I think often of the victims of fraud, of identity theft, corruption and counterfeiting. Over the last year, I've met with people who are on the front line of fighting white-collar crime. To my friends in the Competition Bureau, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Public Policy Research Institute, the Canadian Bar and the RCMP, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Speaker, I would invite all my colleagues to join with me in helping Canadians better detect, thwart, report fraud. Thank you.
Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians shouldn't have to worry about draining their savings or remortgaging their home for the sake of their health, and that's why the Canadian government should fight to protect and expand healthcare in Canada. Unfortunately, the Liberals are letting us down on both counts. They failed to protect Medicare when they held the provinces to Stephen Harper's miserly funding plan, when Saskatchewan violated the Canada Health Act by allowing private clinics to charge for insured services, made a little noise for show, and then look the other way, Mr. Speaker. Recently, they had a tepid announcement about pharmacare, but the finance minister is already backpedaling on the promise. And once again, conflict of interest concerns swirl around the finance minister as Morneau Chappelle does big business consulting on private benefit plans. That's why the Canadian Federation of Nurses Unions have called for him to retract his statements and recuse himself from the work of the National Advisory Council on Pharmacare. For too long, those who would make money on the back of sick Canadians have held up progress on a pharmacare plan. I urge him to take the advice of Canada's nurses and this government to get going on a real universal pharmacare plan.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, for over a century on International Women's Day, we've made pledges and given flowers. It's not enough. Internationally, we need leadership to fully implement the women, peace and security agenda and to fight against gender inequality and gender-based violence. Canada's new National Action Plan is our response, and UN Resolution 1325 our commitment. Around the world, women and girls are strong survivors of horrific conflicts in which they are targeted. I call on all of us to stand with Yazidi, Rohingya, Sudanese women. It's why I introduced Motion 163 calling for a Women, Peace and Security Ambassador. Let us proactively institute programs that inspire participation of women in peacekeeping and for the prevention of conflict and gender-based violence. In partnership with our strong Canadian feminist movement, Budget 2018 committed $2 billion to advance gender equality and peace around the world. I call on all members to support M163.
The honourable member for Saskatoon University.
Mr. Speaker, actions have consequences, something this Liberal government seems to have forgotten. Take, for example, the Liberal implementation of an ideological litmus test for the Canada Summer Jobs Program. The requirement that applicants support the Liberal Party position on hot-button social issues actually hurts Canadian children. Which children, you may ask? How about the children in 24 Aboriginal reserves across Western Canada whose 5-day clubs have been historically funded through the Canada Summer Jobs Program? These children, some of whom come from difficult family situations, were able to benefit from a summer program that cared about their needs and brought a little joy to their lives for part of their summer. But because the sponsoring organization, Child Evangelism Fellowship, does not subscribe to Liberal values, it is ineligible to apply for funding. Child Evangelism Fellowship cares about these children on these reserves. If the Liberal Party also cared about them, they would drop the silly, irrelevant, ideological litmus test for the Canada Summer Jobs Program, so more children could be helped by these clubs.
Honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this past Wednesday, I had the privilege of announcing our government support for 360 Kids Every Bite Matters program. This $800,000 program brought our government long-standing investment in 360 Kids to $3 million. Based in Richmond Hill, 360 Kids addresses the needs of risk at youth from all angles, surrounding kids in crisis with the much-needed care. Only by applying holistic support system can we do our part to help those youth most at risk. Tonight, for the 4th year in a row, I will participate in the 360 Kid experience, spending the night on the streets of York Region. This brief window into the reality facing our most vulnerable youth is an important perspective for any representative. I look forward to seeing 360 Kid flourish and continue their work with Richmond Hill most vulnerable, supported by a government that understands opportunities for youth are investment in our future. Thank you.
Honourable member for Winnipeg South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next week, we will celebrate International Women's Day. It's an opportunity for all Canadians to celebrate women's contributions to our country and the progress we've made towards achieving gender equality. This year's theme is My Feminism. It highlights the importance of our own actions to end gender bias, gender stereotypes, and all forms of gender-based violence. It reminds us we can each be inspirational role models, especially for young people, and be part of the solution to creating a diverse, respectful, inclusive society. I invite all Canadians to join this conversation by using the hashtag MyFeminism. Describe what feminism means to you and share inspiring stories of how your friends, families, and communities are advancing equality. I would also like to welcome the students from the University of Toronto's Women in the House program. In particular, my shadow, Enza Gurgis. I hope some of you will be in the House someday.
I remind honourable member for Winnipeg South and other members that that only the Speaker draws attention to people who are in the galleries. The honourable member for Chatham-Kent Leamington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week I had the pleasure of attending the grand opening of the Chatham Hope Haven Shelter for Homeless Men. It's not just a safe place to sleep, it's where staff and volunteers are able to help homeless men re-enter society and change lives for the better. After 2 years of renovations, the doors are open and overnight services are now available to homeless men in Chatham-Kent Leamington. The director of Hope Haven, Joe Simpson, took the time to thank the community and give special recognition to countless individuals who gave their time and money, including fundraising efforts by students from Indian Creek Public School, Berlin Legion, as well as monthly volunteer commitments from Emmanuel Baptist Church Youth Group, amongst other churches and organizations. Representatives of the Lions Club presented a check for $1,500 to the shelter. All in all, the shelter is a reflection of our community's love and commitment to help those most in need, with a warm meal, a warm bed, and a warm smile in a sometimes cold world.
The honourable member for Beaches East York.
Mr. Speaker, a constituent of mine recently lost her nephew to a fentanyl overdose. It's not the first loss that our country or my community has faced because of the opioid crisis, and if we don't keep working to change historic and failed drug policies, it won't be the last. In 2016, opioids killed almost 3,000 Canadians. Last year, over 4,000 Canadians. We need new solutions. We need to treat drug abuse as a health issue, expand harm reduction and treatment options, and remove the criminal sanction for low-level possession to stop stigmatizing the very people we want to save. I'm proud that our government has expanded safe consumption sites and provided over $200 million in this year's budget to address the opioid crisis, including to improve access to treatment services, but we need to do more. Portugal has proven that a public health approach can reduce problematic drug use, HIV transmission rates, and drug-related deaths, and significantly increase the number of people who seek treatment. Mr. Speaker, we need to follow the evidence to save lives.
The honourable member for Toronto Danforth.
Calling all feminists! International Women's Day is on March 8th. On a fait beaucoup de progrès, mais il y en a.
We've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of work to do. This year's theme is My Feminism, and it underscores the importance of our own actions in putting an end to prejudice, stereotypes, and all forms of sexist violence.
Women around me who are doing so much for gender equity in business, in sports, yay Olympians, and for the arts. This weekend, I was at ACTRA Toronto's 75th Anniversary Awards. The president of the organization, Teresa Tova, brought everyone to their feet as allies against sexual harassment and in favor of gender equity. It was an inspiring moment. And the Awards of Excellence winner, Jennifer Podemski, exemplified standing up and making change. We can bring change together. Bonne Journée Internationale de Femmes.
Happy International Women's Day.
For Calgary Forest Lawn.
Ready to go?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, let me take a moment today to tell this House why India matters. India is a vibrant democracy projected to be the 5th largest economy in the world. By next year, it is projected to be the fastest growing economy in the world. Canada is a home to 1.2 million Indo-Canadians, the 4th largest diaspora in the Western world. This diaspora has immensely contributed to enriching Canada's socio-economic fabric. Two Prime Ministers' visit and 2 Governor General's visit, of which I was part, cemented our solid relationship based on trade, people-to-people ties, and most importantly, on the world stage, shared values. The recent tourist visit by the Prime Minister to India, highlighted by immature diplomacy and liberal electoral interest, has crash-landed this important relationship, and it looks like a repeat of the former Liberal government's Canada-India tie. Mr. Speaker, a strong relationship with our Commonwealth partner is in the best interest of Canada. Thank you.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, today for the third year in a row, I welcome to Parliament Hill dozens of children and representatives of the Sustainable Food Network for the Big Crunch event. Some of you join me in acknowledging the need to offer healthy food to our children as we are developing a Canadian food policy and a healthy eating strategy. We should make sure that children are at the very center of our considerations. It's not just that I'm a grandfather and I want to tell children and I want to help them to be healthy. I want to help all Canadians. I'd like to thank this extraordinary Coalition for Healthy Eating at School and the network which supports this cause and advances it day in, day out. I would invite you to bite into an apple with me and 300,000 children to symbolize your commitment to better eating. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I have been in this place since 2011 speaking out against Kinder Morgan's plan to build a new bitumen pipeline from Edmonton to Burnaby. I've warned the Prime Minister there will be dire consequences if he continues with his plan to ram this pipeline through communities and unceded First Nations territories without consent. I've warned the Natural Resources Minister that his threats to use the military against British Columbians will only serve to deepen the intensity of the opposition. And unfortunately, this is all coming true. A recent Insights West poll found 10% of British Columbians are willing to engage in civil disobedience to stop this pipeline. That's tens of thousands of people who are willing to be arrested to stop Kinder Morgan. And it's coming soon, Mr. Speaker. In a few days, Indigenous communities impacted by Kinder Morgan are beginning what they deem frontline resistance along the pipeline route and pledge to do, quote, whatever it takes to stop Kinder Morgan, including mass mobilization on March 10th. Mr. Speaker, it is madness for this government to continue with the support for this pipeline, and I urge them to stop.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, over 46,000 Canadians signed a Beer Canada petition to remove the government's automatic escalator tax on beer. The Canadian beer industry supports 149,000 middle-class jobs, generates $5.7 billion in tax, and adds $13.6 billion to Canada's GDP. In a letter to the industry, the government calls this yearly escalator tax an inconsequential tax increase. But, Mr. Speaker, 47% of the price of beer in Canada is already taxed. Meanwhile, the United States federal government lowered its federal excise duty rates on beer, wine, and spirits as of April 1st. The top federal excise duty rate on Canadian beer will be 90% higher than the top U.S. rate. Beer drinkers in Canada pay close to $20 a case, while in the United States, beer drinkers pay about $2 in tax. To suggest that there's room to increase the Canadian beer tax rate even further is just not credible. Mr. Speaker, when will this government stop adding tax increases on top of tax increases?
The honourable member for Ajax.
I know, I'm sure.
Mr. Speaker, as an alumni of the University of Toronto, it gives me enormous pleasure today to represent the nonpartisan group Women in House, who are taking part today following female MPs, absolutely, to address a very serious problem in this place, and that is the underrepresentation of women in this chamber. And these individuals are going to have the opportunity to shadow different members of Parliament, to learn about Ottawa and what a great place it is to work and how they can serve Canadians, to deal with issues like gender equality, and to get mentored and to get networking, and hopefully some of them are going to return here as leaders. Mr. Speaker, I want to particularly thank both Tina Park and the member for Toronto St. Paul's, who were responsible for creating this important initiative to make sure that we advance the important cause of having more women represented in this House.
Questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member for Milton.
Earlier today, President Trump announced new tariffs both on steel and aluminum. Canada is the #1 supplier of aluminum and steel to the United States. Can the Prime Minister update the House on whether or not he has confirmed with the President of the United States that Canada will be exempt from these tariffs?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, as you would expect, we are following the situation very carefully. Any tariffs or quota that would be imposed on our Canadian steel and aluminum industry would be unacceptable. Any such decision would have an impact on both sides of the borders, and Canadians rest assured that we will always be there to defend our workers and our steel and aluminum industry across this country, and we will stand firm for Canadian workers.
Honourable member for Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Security Advisor, in briefing the Canadian press on a trip to India, indicated that the Indian government sabotaged the Prime Minister's trip. Now, when the Prime Minister defended this official in this House, he actually elevated that defence into an official statement of Canada. And the Indian government has responded aggressively, saying that it is baseless and it's also unacceptable. This has been characterized as a serious rift in the relationship between Canada and India, and I'm wondering, what is the Prime Minister going to do to fix this diplomatic rift?
Honourable Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, as we have been saying, this invitation should never have been sent. As soon as it came to our attention, it was withdrawn, and the MP in question has taken responsibility. Canada's national security agencies are nonpartisan and both highly competent and effective. We trust them to protect and promote Canada's security. They continue to do an excellent job in serving and protecting the interests of Canadians.
Bravo.
The honourable member for Milton.
Well, I appreciate the response from the member, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that we are far beyond invitations to any attempted murderers. Where we are right now is the reality that the Prime Minister is avoiding his responsibility, and as a result, we're being laughed at as a country across the world. The former High Commissioner from India likened the allegations of the Prime Minister of a sabotage conspiracy to something out of Harry Potter, calling it pure fiction. And a foreign affairs expert on CBC said the saga is a whodunit Harry Potter, Alice in Wonderland scheme. Right. Mr. Speaker, this is a complete embarrassment. What is the Prime Minister doing to fix the mess he created?
Honourable Minister of Science.
Mr. Speaker, we will always promote and defend the integrity of our public servants who accomplish incredible work. Unlike the previous government, we respect the nonpartisan nature of the public service, especially those who serve in national security agencies. We trust that advice and actions they take. All Canadians can be proud of their nonpartisan work, which our national security agencies carry out on a daily basis.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, no one's talking about our public service. No one's challenging the security services in Canada. What we're talking about here is the Prime Minister's main advisor, who is closely tied to him in his duties. And on Tuesday, the Prime Minister said in this House that the presence of Jaspal Atwal, the terrorist, alongside the Canadian delegation was the cause of a conspiracy by members of the Indian government that allegedly wanted to sabotage his trip to India. So my question is simple. Does the Prime Minister still believe in the conspiracy scenario? And if yes, then can he table evidence of those assertions in this House? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we have been saying, this invitation should never have been sent. As soon as it came to our attention, it was withdrawn, and the MP in question has taken responsibility. Canada's national security agencies are nonpartisan and both highly competent and effective. We trust them to protect and promote Canada's security. They continue to do an excellent job in serving and protecting the interests of Canadians.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Order, please. Here is the statement made by the Indian Foreign Affairs Ministry. Allow me to categorically state that the government of India, including the security agencies, had nothing to do with the presence of Jaspal Atwal in India. Any suggestion to the contrary is baseless and unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, those words are serious. Does the Prime Minister agree with that statement? And if not, what can he do to prove the contrary? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we have said, whether in this case or in their everyday work, all the nonpartisan security agencies do an exceptional job in the service of Canada's national interests. Canadians can be reassured that beyond the partisan nature of the Commons, the advice offered by these agencies is in no way contingent upon the ruling party. We respect our national security organizations and their public service, and Canada can be proud of all they do in the interests of Canadians.
The
honourable member for Berthier-Mange.
Canadians are confused with the Liberals' promise around pharmacare. Not only is it unclear whether the Liberals will eventually, maybe one day, sometime in the future, go ahead with universal pharmacare program, it's even more troubling. Just one day after this big announcement, Canadians learned that the dice is already stacked. The Liberals plan to go forward with a means-tested system. Mr. Speaker, why is the government putting together this advisory council if they already know what they want to do?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we were very pleased to put forward a council, a committee to take a look at how we can ensure that we deal with getting pharmaceutical products to all Canadians. We are going to look for expert advice to tell us how best to do this. We know that the goal, making sure that every Canadian has access to pharmaceuticals, is critically important. We also know that listening to experts is important, and that's exactly what we intend to do as we hear back from the advisory committee on how we can move forward. Thank you.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquin-Angers.
Promise around electoral reform, Mr. Speaker. Trois majeures organisations.
Three major organizations, including the Canada Labour Congress, have called for the minister to recuse himself from discussions surrounding the pharmacare program in order to avoid another conflict of interest, but also to avoid having him work against the interest of Canadians by attempting to influence the outcome of the consultation. Canadians want and need a pharmacare program, a universal program today. Will the Prime Minister remove the Minister of Finance from the discussions, and can he ensure that the consultation is not simply a tactic to win some time?
No. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we are considering how we will move forward with a system for Canadians to have medication they require. We have decided to have a council of experts to focus on how we will proceed, and that is very important for our government. We will listen to the experts.
New Westminster Burnaby.
Another day, another conflict of interest, and here we've got the involvement of Morneau-Chapelle. It's like they never had an idea to steal the idea of a pharmacare program from us, while the Liberals are sabotaging the idea. They're sabotaging our ideas, Mr. Speaker. Why are the interests of Canadian families placed behind the interests of Morneau-Chapelle and the ultra-rich?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's a bizarre question. We think that the idea of actually having experts help us to actually come forward with a way that we can actually get pharmaceuticals to all Canadians is important. I guess the members opposite would have us not have experts involved. Well, I can tell you what would happen if that were the case. We could have the NDP and the member from Carleton do the policy, because that's why we'd have no expertise at all.
Honourable order. Order. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Order. Canadians are not going to wait another 21 years because of Liberal waiting. Now, Liberals promise yet another study one day, and then literally the next day admit that they have no intention of ever bringing in universal pharmacare. The PBO says Canadians would save over $4 billion per year. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians who can't afford medication would be helped. Businesses would be helped by reducing costs. The only one not helped is Morneau-Chapelle. We need to act. The Prime Minister hasn't stolen the NDP plan, he has vandalized it. Why won't this government bring in real universal pharmacare now?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are proud of our publicly funded universal Medicare system, one based on the individual's need and not the ability to pay. Yet, we recognize there's certainly room for improvement. We have created a National Advisory Committee on the implementation of pharmacare, with its mandate to study, evaluate, and ultimately bring recommendations to government on possible options. This initiative will build on the good work that's already been started by the HoC Committee, and we look forward to the report that we'll be receiving next spring. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Surrey Centre is no longer the BC caucus chair. Whether he was fired or resigned is only known between the Prime Minister and himself. But what Canadians do know is that a Liberal MP has acknowledged to be the person that invited a convicted terrorist to the Prime Minister's Indian events. So why is the Prime Minister clinging to this preposterous theory that it was the Indian government? Why is the Liberal government levying unfounded attacks on our friend in India when one of their own caucus members has accepted responsibility?
Secretary of the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as we've been saying all along, this invitation should never have been sent. Once we were made aware of this individual's background, the invitation was rescinded. The member has apologized. And let me say that we respect tremendously the nonpartisan, incredible work that the men and women do in our national security agencies every single day. We take their advice and we act on it accordingly.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, what we do know is that member in 2010 said it was unfair for a cloud of suspicion to hang over a community. They're allowing a cloud of suspicion to hang over a country of over 1 billion people, Mr. Speaker. What we know is that the Indian government has said the conspiracy theory claims of the Prime Minister are baseless. The Liberal MP for Surrey Centre has said the Indian conspiracy claims are not correct. Even the Prime Minister's friend Jasbal Atwal, have called the Indian conspiracy claims a lie, Mr. Speaker. To stop the diplomatic bleeding, will the Prime Minister retract his remarks?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been preeminently clear in our trust for our nonpartisan public service. We stand behind them full force. I do remember in 2010, if the member wants to talk about that date, watching the cuts that happened to our security and intelligence infrastructure, hundreds of millions of dollars. I do remember in 2006 the Justice O'Connor's inquiry, which was ignored. I remember Yakabuchi in 2008, ignored. Important flaws in our security infrastructure that were not fixed. Mr. Speaker, we are fixing it.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the answers are always the same and they make no sense. So let's go slowly here. First thing, the Prime Minister believes there's a conspiracy by the Indian government to damage relations between the two countries. 2, he decided to punish one of his MPs for having invited a convicted terrorist, Jasbal Atwal, to an event organized by the High Commissioner. 1 + 1. Does that mean, then, that the MP and the government are conspiring against Canada?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, same question, same answer. We have full confidence in the services provided by our public service. The Prime Minister has said that, and I will reiterate that answer. The Honourable Member. Okay, so if I understand the answer then, it's that India conspired to create problems between India and Canada. That's what he's saying. And then, if that's the case, we need proof. Do you have the proof that confirm that India took steps to damage the relationship between the two countries?
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I reject the assertions being made by the member opposite. An invitation was issued. When that was realized, it was withdrawn immediately. We have full confidence in our security services.
Mr. Speaker, we know two things. First, the Prime Minister believes that the Indian government is responsible for a convicted terrorist embarrassing him on his trip. And second, the Liberal MP has been punished for inviting that convicted terrorist on their trip. So my question is to the Prime Minister, how can these two things both be true? When will the Prime Minister stop hiding the facts and show us the evidence?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I know three things. Number one, that when the individual in question was found out to have the information that was there, that invitation was rescinded and the Member of Parliament apologized. Secondly, I know that that this party always, in every way, makes sure that we respect our nonpartisan, independent, phenomenal individuals that work within our public service. And I know three, Mr. Speaker, the party opposite, the Conservatives, when they were in power, did not.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want answers because the Liberals are just making no sense. Why did the Surrey Centre MP apologize and resign his position as BC Liberal Caucus Chair, independently or otherwise, for something the Prime Minister himself said he believes the Indian government did? This is all as ridiculous, damaging and disastrous as the trip was itself, and these Liberals should be ashamed.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I've answered the question very clearly, that the individual, once we found out the information, that invitation was rescinded, that the member apologized, but I reject totally the assertion that was made about the trip. The reality is more than $1 billion was achieved in cross-border trade, more than 580,000 good middle-class jobs were created for Canadians. Important frameworks were established to continue our trade with India. It was important work that we're going to continue to build on.
The honourable member for Laurier Sainte Marie. Mr. Speaker, when a Prime Minister spends a week in another country, people expect him to come back with some results, significant results, and positive results, ideally. Almost a week has gone by since his return, and we still don't know what the purpose of the trip was. We need leaders who focus 100% on citizens' needs instead of focusing on themselves and the interests of their party. So when will we finally be told what the real reasons for this trip were?
The
Honourable Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. The trip was to strengthen cultural and economic links with India. Mr. Speaker, we brought in more than $1 billion in announcements of investments. Jobs will be created. It follows up on the mission that back in November, the trade mission, and this is what we expect of a Prime Minister, to bring home positive news for the economy, for Canadians. That's exactly what the Prime Minister did.
This morning I wrote to the Prime Minister asking him to provide parliamentarians with a security briefing over his allegations about the alleged interference by the government of India and how alleged convicted assassin and Liberal insider Jaspal Atwal was given access to the Prime Minister's delegation, because those allegations made in Parliament an enormous damage to Canada's credibility and the Prime Minister's. So will he provide Parliament with the evidence in a briefing, or is this him using the Donald Trump damage control playbook of self-serving political Pinocchioism?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said, and I will reiterate, the invitation that was sent was rescinded when the information found out was that the individual should never have received that invitation. The member in question has apologized, and we say that we have full and total confidence in our national security infrastructure, in the nonpartisan advice that they give us. That is advice that we take very seriously and listen to in all instances.
The honourable member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, agriculture, 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 agriculture. In a few seconds, I said more about agriculture than the Minister of Finance last Tuesday in his 40-minute budget speech. Nothing for dairy, eggs or poultry producers, nothing for grain transportation in the West, nothing. Risk management, nothing. Agriculture, nothing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture once again failed to rise to speak on behalf of farmers. Why is the Liberal government ignoring farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture. Order.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question. The budget builds on Budget 2017 that identifies agriculture as a key sector. We invested $150 million in the protein supercluster. We invested $100 million in agricultural science, $70 million and $30 million, after millions were cut from the budget by the previous government. We invested $75 million to promote Canada's trade with China. We invested $350 million to make sure our dairy industry remains stable, Mr. Speaker, and to make sure it stays on the country.
Honourable member for Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, for farmers, timing is everything. There's a specific time to plant, to spray, to harvest, and in most cases, winter is the time to deliver when the roads are frozen and carry the weight. In the next few weeks, road bans will go into effect, making it impossible for farmers to move their crop from farm to elevator. The clock is ticking. Farmers are in a cash flow crisis, and time is of an essence. When will this minister order the railways to do their job and deliver this year's crop?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and we know this is a serious situation. That is why we introduced Bill C-49 to establish a strong, reliable and efficient grain transportation system for the long term. The Minister of Transport and I both have contacted CN just to indicate how serious it is that they continue to need more grain faster. I have spoken to the grain farmers, Mr. Speaker, and indicated to them that we are fully aware of the seriousness of this situation.
Honourable Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals ignored our advice to pass a separate grain transportation bill. When they failed to extend important provisions like interswitching, the Liberals have allowed for this grain backlog crisis. We have seen the worst railcar performances of the year, and the numbers are only getting worse. And yet the Minister of Agriculture had the nerve yesterday to tell farmers when it came to the backlog situation, and I quote, "It's not real serious at this moment." When will the Minister of Agriculture understand how serious this is and start taking some action?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, our government has proven time and time again that it is strongly committed to Canadian farmers and to the agriculture industry. Unlike the previous Harper government's Band-Aid solution with an expiry date, this government put forward a permanent and sustainable solution in Bill C-49 that would meet the long-term needs of farmers. To quote the Western Grain Elevators Association, this bill is a significant improvement over the existing legislation and a positive step forward for the grain industry.
Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have to stop blaming others for their mismanagement on the grain backlog issue. They can take definitive action now to address this situation, but they refuse. And you know who's suffering the consequences? Are Canadian grain farmers. In some areas, railcar performance was 6% last week, and it is only getting worse. Our reputation as a reliable grain exporter is tarnished, and yet the Minister of Agriculture can't even stand up and defend Canadian farmers. How bad does this situation have to get before the Liberals stop defending the rail monopoly and start fighting for Canadian farmers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, both ministers are very well aware of the situation. In fact, both ministers had conversations with CN and CP about this issue. They have asked them for a plan. They need to see improvement on this issue. If there is not improvement, the ministers are willing to intervene. We are going to give the companies the first chance to improve this process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have to thank the member for Foothills for apologizing for his short outburst there.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, this week the Liberals gave hope that we would finally get a universal pharmacare system. But 24 hours later, this false hope was destroyed by the Minister of Finance, who revealed that the coverage would be neither universal, nor public, nor free. And yet the studies have been clear. The experts have already spoken. Setting up a national pharmacare system means reducing inequality and allowing Quebec's men and women to stop paying for private plans that are beyond their means. Why are the Liberals not acting now? The Honourable Minister for Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All Canadians are proud of their universal health care system. It is funded publicly, and it responds to needs instead of capacity to pay. Of course, it could be improved. We have set up a consultative group on pharmacare. This committee will study and evaluate the situation and make recommendations to the government. It will continue to do the excellent work that the Health Committee started, and we are looking forward to their recommendations.
For Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, quote, "Many Canadians have limited prescription drug coverage and 12% have no coverage at all. This situation is plainly inconsistent with the values upon which Medicare is based. It is illogical to guarantee access to medical diagnosis but not the treatment, nor does it make economic sense. Together with key partners, a new Liberal government will develop a national plan and timetable for introducing universal public coverage. What am I quoting, Mr. Speaker? The 1997 Liberal plan. Liberals failed Canadians then. Why should we believe them now?
Honourable Minister, order. Honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway is, of course, an experienced member and knows that you're not allowed to use props in this place. The Honourable Minister of Health. Order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise to hear the NDP try to implement an idea without a plan. Well, we're moving forward with a plan. We have created a National Advisory Council on the implementation of a national pharmacare program. Its mandate is to study, to evaluate, and to bring recommendations to our government I say recommendations, Mr. Speaker, because we want to get this right. This initiative is going to build on the good work that the Health Committee has done in this House, and I am looking forward to hearing their recommendations in spring of 2019.
Member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Mr. Speaker, next week on International Women's Day, we will be reminded of the important role that women play in shaping our communities both here in Canada and around the world. Although we've seen significant progress, there is still progress to be made in assuring real gender equality. As we approach International Women's Day, could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Status of Women please tell this House how Budget 2018 will contribute to helping to close the gaps and ensuring that women have real equal opportunities to succeed?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
To thank the member for Ottawa West Nepean for the excellent question. And Mr. Speaker, as we get set to celebrate the contributions and achievements of women on International Women's Day, I am pleased to say that our government is taking concrete actions towards gender equality, putting gender at the heart of decision-making by legislating Gender-Based Analysis Plus, recognizing the important role of the Status of Women Canada by making it a full department, and, Mr. Speaker, investing $100 million for a strong, sustainable women's movement. Mr. Speaker, when women succeed, we all succeed, our economy succeeds.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, never has a government spent so much for such paltry results. That is the outcome of the Liberal budget presented this week, and the worst of it is the deficit is $18 billion, 3 times higher than what was promised. Mr. Speaker, we're not the only ones who are worried about this. The Premier, the Liberal Premier of Quebec, even said that in a period of economic growth, budgets must be balanced. My question for the Minister of Finance, he who says that he's good as math, can he give us a number? When will we go back to balanced budgets? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I would like to tell the member that it's a good idea to go to his writing to consider the budget. Our level of economic growth is the highest in the G7. We've created 600,000 new jobs over the last few years. Those are results. It's a great situation for Canadian families. We decided to invest into Canadian men and women, and it's giving us real results for people throughout our country. That's the right way to run the economy. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. With pleasure. I'm happy to invite the Minister of Finance to my writing anytime he wants, but that's not my question. My question is a simple one. When will we go back to balanced budgets? Because everyone who knows the economy knows that it's not right to run deficits when the economy is doing well. Sylvain Gébert from Raymond Chabot to Grant Thornton said that the Minister of Finance had better pray for the Canadian economy to keep doing well. It's a very dangerous game to keep running deficits when the economy is doing well. My question is simple. When do we go back to balanced budgets? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, we had a debate in our country with one question. Do we have to make cuts and implement austerity, or do we have to invest into Canadians? Canadians made the right choice to improve the economy, the right way to improve their situation. We have made investments into our country, into our families, and what's happening? Very high economic growth. This is an excellent situation for all Canadians.
Carlton. Talk is cheap except when this finance minister does it. It's very expensive. He said the deficit would be just $6 billion this year. Instead, it's $18 billion. He said it would be balanced next year. Now that won't happen for another quarter century. In fact, while he was delivering his budget speech, the national debt grew by $1.5 million. That's either too much spending or too much talking. Which is it?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I think we had a debate a couple of years ago in the country. We had to decide between cuts and austerity or investments in Canadians. So let's consider the results. Fastest growth in the G7 and the lowest unemployment in about 40 years. So in the face of these facts, it's incredible to me. It's only the Conservatives that we consider with sheer incompetence to go back to the Harper Conservative approach to austerity and cuts. We're making a difference for Canadians, growing the economy and getting them jobs.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the finance minister is like the rooster who thinks that he made the sun come up just because he crowed when the sun came up. In fact, he inherited temporary good fortune from oil prices that are up by 100%. By a housing bubble in both Vancouver and Toronto, by massive household indebtedness, which has put our economy on a short-term sugar high. Why has this finance minister spent the cupboard bare in the short-term good times, leaving us so exposed to danger in the long-term future?
I think colleagues will know that it's probably best for order in this place if we don't compare members to barnyard animals. So, the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I hate to let facts get in the way of rhetoric, but perhaps we can consider what actually was the inheritance that this government took from the previous government. Unemployment rates over 7%. Situation where we've seen the lowest growth rate since the Great Depression. And what's happened since then, Mr. Speaker? Our approach of investing in Canada, we've got highest growth rates in the G7. We've got the lowest unemployment rates we've seen in 40 years. And where are we now? A fiscally responsible approach to keep investing in the long term in this country so this generation, the next generation, and future generations will be better off.
Honourable Member for Churchill, Newcastle.
Mr. Speaker, while the Prime Minister was travelling around the world with his chef in tow, the reality is that more and more Canadians are being left behind. Yep. People in Churchill are facing skyrocketing food prices. They're going hungry because of the kind of policies and incompetence of this government that has led to the loss of the rail service. When will the Prime Minister recognize that his globe-trotting selfies and his photo-op tours are doing nothing to help Canadians? And when will he get to work to act on the real challenges that people in Churchill and across the country are facing today?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for her question. Our government remains committed to the people of Churchill and northern Manitoba, and we recognize the importance of that rail line for that community. We will continue to support the government's negotiation and the ongoing discussions with interested buyers, Indigenous groups and community leaders. We're optimistic that we can make progress on this, and we need a sustainable business plan towards owning and operating that line. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Last week, the Wild Fish Conservancy released lab results showing 100% of escaped salmon tested were infected with the highly contagious virus PRV. 100%, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal rhetoric about strong regulations and environmental protection for salmon mean nothing. The burden of proof for that PRV does not cause harm to wild salmon doesn't rest on the fish. The minister needs to act. When will the minister get these disease-ridden farms off the wild salmon migration route and on land?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague knows very well that our government is deeply concerned about the state of the wild salmon populations in British Columbia. We have invested literally tens of millions of dollars in enhanced science, monitoring, auditing process to ensure that the protection of wild Pacific salmon remains a priority for our government. It's something that our Pacific Caucus has talked to us about over and over again. We understand, Mr. Speaker, that there needs to be robust aquaculture regulations. We understand that in conservation protection officers and increased monitoring is important, and we're going to work with the government of British Columbia to ensure that we have the toughest rules in place to protect this industry.
The honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, the Fisheries Minister has now had 3 days to reflect on a question I asked in the House earlier this week. I ask again and hope to actually get an answer this time. When the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans made a decision on Arctic surf clam quota, a quota that's worth millions of dollars, was he aware that the beneficiary of his decision was the brother of a Liberal caucus colleague member?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, when we made a decision to add a new entrant into this important commercial species, we knew that the most important people to benefit from this change were Indigenous Canadians on the east coast of Canada and in the province of Quebec. Mr. Speaker, the previous Conservative government had a process to add a new entrant to this fishery. They forgot to include Indigenous people. We had an open, competitive process where 7 bids were analyzed in detail, and we chose the one that offers the best economic opportunity for Indigenous people and Atlantic Canadians and Quebecers.
The honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, this minister and the Liberal government are completely out of touch with Canadians. By hand-picking winners and losers, this minister is jeopardizing middle-class jobs in Grand Bank and all across Newfoundland and Labrador. The mayor of Grand Bank has called this a devastating blow to his community. How can the minister justify this to the workers and their families, families whose livelihoods are at stake because of his decision?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, we understand and we respect the concerns of the people of Grand Bank and the people who work in that processing facility. My colleague who represents in this House of Commons that community has spoken to me about this important issue. So has the government of Newfoundland and Labrador. Mr. Speaker, we're committed to ensuring that the facility in Grand Bank and the workers who earn their living at that important facility have the benefit of an economic opportunity that's sustainable, that's long-term, and will continue to ensure that the economic opportunities in Grand Bank remain robust. But, Mr. Speaker, that party was also planning to bring a new entrant into the fishery, and they didn't seem concerned about Grand Bank then.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
The chair of the First Nations Financial Management Board said last year that the need for housing and infrastructure is between $20 and $30 billion. Then he said, quote, "Where is all that money going to come from if we don't engage in business and economic development?" So the Liberals' response: tanker bans, drilling moratoriums, taxes, increased red tape. They've actually, investment is fleeing, and they've impeded the opportunity for investment. Why are the Liberals putting up so many roadblocks for Indigenous economic prosperity?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to answer this question and to talk about things like the housing investments that were made in our federal budget this week. We have investments going $500 million for Métis housing, $400 million for Inuit housing, $200 million every single year for First Nations housing. We're working with our partners on developing a distinctions-based housing strategy to make sure that we address these gaps, get jobs for people, and get people homes to live in.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, since we've taken power, our government is doing everything it must to ensure that economic growth benefits the middle class. When the majority of Canadians are working hard and pay their taxes, some wealthy individuals or businesses that we know of are using strategies to avoid paying their fair share. Budget 2018 reaffirms the commitment of our government to fight tax avoidance and tax evasion. Can the Minister of National Revenue inform this House of new measures taken to make our tax system more fair? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague from Lac-Saint-Jean for being a strong voice for Quebec's regions. For 2 years, we've done a great deal to fight against those who avoid paying their fair share. The proof is that as of today, the new voluntary disclosure program is opening up. Budget 2018 has $100 million set aside in new investment. We have closed tax loopholes used by multinational corporations. The jaws of the trap are closing. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Etchemins, Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the Premier of Quebec, Philippe Couillard, is disappointed with Budget 2018. The Mayor for Lévis is as well. Why? Because there's nothing in the budget for Davie Shipyard's workers and contractors. And yet, Asterix was delivered on time. When will the Prime Minister grant the 4 icebreakers to Davie, proceed with building Obelix, and respect what was outlined in the shipbuilding strategy? The Honourable Minister of Public Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for his efforts for Davie's workers. They did excellent work on the Asterix, and we have set aside contracts for icebreakers. We are negotiating with Davie to meet the Coast Guard's needs. Before we will share the decision with everybody once we have one. The Honourable Member for Longueuil Saint-Hubert. I don't know a lot of people who got out of paying any taxes in Thursday's Liberal budget except for large web multinational corporations like Netflix. A nice gift paid for by everyday folks. The only response to the government to the calls from Quebec and the cultural sector when it comes to taxing these corporations is to set up a 5-year study and to talk about that with other G7 countries. But they're going to look silly because a great deal of these countries have already acted and set up taxes on these types of corporations. When are they finally going to act and stop setting up piecemeal deals with multinational corporations? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. We know that Quebec's media sector has changed because our way of using media has changed. That is why we've committed to modernizing our policy in order to meet issues linked to digital media. We've been very clear. We made promises and we will keep them. We recognize that over the long term, we will have to develop a global solution to the matter of taxation of digital platforms. But we won't do things piecemeal.
Johns East. Mr. Speaker, Indigenous children comprise 7.7% of all Canadians under 15 years of age, and yet they represent a whopping 52% of children in foster care in private homes. Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians alike, including my constituents in St. John's East, are demanding that this ongoing injustice be addressed. Can the Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services please update this House on what our government is doing to champion Indigenous child welfare? Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Honourable Member from St. John's East for this important question and his advocacy on this issue. I hope that all members in this House were heartened to see that there are new investments in the order of $1.4 billion to support child and family services for Indigenous families. This means that we will be able to achieve equity for First Nations child and family service agencies, but even more than that, we will be able to support communities with prevention services, ensuring that children can be raised by their families in their communities, surrounded by their language and culture, and I hope we are all working hard to that end.
Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Oddly, the Minister of the Environment shared a video of her celebrating with the Canada Parks and Wilderness Society, a group that's suing her government. Yet when it comes to meeting with organizations who are uniquely positioned to protecting caribou in the communities in which they live, the Minister suddenly has no time. Can the Minister confirm that she refused to meet with the Northwest Species at Risk Committee and the Alberta Forestry Alliance? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my job, I am happy to meet with as many people as I can, as do my public servants, as do my political team. I was very pleased that we announced $1.3 billion for parks and protected areas in budget 2018. This is amazing for Canadians. This is amazing to tackle climate change. This is amazing for species at risk. It also demonstrates the environment and the economy go together.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Mr. Speaker, Quebec's forests are being ravaged by a budworm infestation, and it seems like the federal government is doing all it can to make it worse. In 2014, the government gave twice as much money to New Brunswick as it did to Quebec to stop the infestation. But the budworm isn't shy about crossing borders, and the infested area in Quebec is bigger than all of New Brunswick. New budget, Mr. Speaker. Same lack of support for our forestry producers. $75 million for the Maritimes. Not a penny for Quebec. Not one. What will it take for Quebec to get its fair share? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
A critical importance of forestry to the economies of Eastern and Western Canada as a source of jobs, prosperity and opportunity. We are acutely aware of the threat that forest pests like the mountain pine beetle, emerald ash borer and spruce budworm pose to Canada's forests. In Budget 2016, we invested $87 million to support scientific research and infrastructure, including funding to combat destructive forest pests, such as the spruce budworm and the mountain pine beetle. We are working closely with provinces, universities, and industry, all with the common goal of finding a way to keep these pest populations low.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers are badly served. In the past, Ottawa found $225 million to help British Columbia deal with a similar infestation. This year, Ottawa is extending $25 million to the Maritimes, but nothing for Quebec. Nothing for forested areas as vast as an entire province that have been infested and ravaged. Forests that are useless for the forestry sector and ruinous for private property owners. How can the government justify giving other provinces and completely ignoring support for Quebec?
Partly ignoring the forest industry, including the forest industry in Quebec. And we were very pleased to announce an $867 million softwood lumber package in response to unwarranted countervail and anti-dumping duties of the United States. We continue to have very important conversations with the government of Quebec, with the Minister of Forests in Quebec, working to make sure that our forests are protected not only for today, but for tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway has a point of order arising from question period.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to apologize to all of my colleagues in the House for holding up the document, the 1997 Liberal platform. That's the wrong way to remind Canadians of the broken promises of the government. So I'd like to seek unanimous consent to table the 1997 Liberal election campaign platform that promised Canadians
Order, unanimous, there's no unanimous consent. Order. J'ai l'honneur d'informer la...
I have the honor of informing the House that the following text has been received on March 1st, 2018. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor of informing you that the Right Honourable Julie Payette, Governor General of Canada, has given royal assent